That's the cue. Okay, hi. Greetings and welcome to Chelsea Land Use. My name's Carrie Keenan. Greg Morris and I are the co-chairs of the Chelsea Land Use Committee, which usually meets monthly, and this is our March meeting. MCB4 has a hybrid meeting policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and/or an extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining by Zoom must leave their cameras on. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on YouTube, and a transcript is being recorded. Tonight we have two items on the agenda. As usual, I will please remind everybody that we must treat each other with respect and decorum, including committee members. If there are disruptions that affect participation, which we don't expect, or interrupt meeting business, we can call a temporary recess. And lastly, please be cognizant of time. We must now leave this space by 9:30. So we got an extra half an hour permanently. And we're going to continue to use this space for many reasons, one of which is security, one of which is convenience to Chelsea, and Jesse, thank you, Jesse, got us an extra half an hour. If that proves to be a problem moving forward, we'll try to get some more time. So we have quorum, and we're going to start with item number 1, which is, I just keep saying it as like super exciting for me. It was my first project as a Chelsea Land Use member. It was. And it's a presentation by New York State ESD to present on the site formerly known as the Bayview Correctional Facility at 550 West 20th Street, the general project plan. The working title is Liberty Landing, just so everyone knows and isn't thrown by that. We're still trying to make that up for debate, but if you hear Liberty Landing, that means formerly Bayview. I really hope, we both hope that everyone took the opportunity to go through all the materials that we sent. Not so easy, but very important. There's been at least a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, so that should be enough time. And I just want to remind everybody what an amazing project this is. We have, been involved from the get-go. It's actually our proposal in the first place. When I say our, I mean the board's. And we have succeeded in creating a plan for a 100% permanently affordable and supportive housing facility that will help so many people in our community. And it's just, as well as all of the intricate, demands that we wanted met with preservation and community space and community support. So I think this is fantastic. And we are joined tonight by ESD, Camber Property Group, Osborne Association, Urban Pathways, I think, and Cook Fox Architects. And with that, I'll turn it over to Angel to begin the presentation. If you would just make sure that everyone just introduces themselves and what their, role is in the project before they speak. Thank you so much for coming in person, and look forward to going through this.
Should I stand here or? Okay. And we're going to share the presentation in a second, right? Okay. Before we get started on the presentation, I just wanted to, again, thank the board. You hit it on the nail. This is, believe it or not, we're going on over 2 years of conversations about this site. Oh, there it is, perfect. Over 2 years of advocacy from the community board. We've been working in partnership on trying to take a vacant state-owned property and turn it into something that would benefit the entire community. So again, I know you guys have your housing proposal, and unfortunately, because of that housing proposal, there's a lot of work being done between ESD and this board. We have a lot in the pipeline with you guys, but again, we really appreciate this board's really thoughtful plan here. I think a lot of folks on our end are very excited about this project, and you can see by the lightly attended project team here how much excitement there is for this project. But before we get started on the presentation, I just wanted to also call up some folks to introduce themselves from the project team. Do you guys want to go first? Sure. Actually, Joanne, I think Joanna should.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Joanna Kendall, the development director working on this project. I'm joined by my colleagues, Ryan Belcher, a project manager, also working from Camber, as well as Karen Hugh, the head of development for Camber. Wendell, why don't you join me up here and I'll pass the microphone.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Wendell Walters, I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Housing Officer for the Osborne Association. We're so excited to be part of this project. I want to have my colleague introduce herself. You can just stand up. Christina Green, she's a Vice President for Housing Operations at Osborne as well. So thank you again.
Let's go Urban Pathways. Want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Good evening, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but feeling a little bit under the weather, so I figured I'd keep my germs to myself. But my name is Ariel Garcia. I'm the Chief Housing Development Officer at Urban Pathways, and we're operating the 15-bed short-term transitional program. And I've also got my colleague Lisa Lombardi on. Lisa, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Lombardi. I'm the Deputy Executive Director at Urban Pathways for about 16 years, been in the business for about 47 years. And I've worked with Community Board 4 and Jesse and his team, and they're one of the best community boards around. So thank you for having me.
My name is Mark Rositsky. I'm one of the partners at Cook Fox Architects. We've been working with Camber and Osborne on the project through the RFP process through the state for about a year and a half, and been really focused in on the building itself, and we're really excited to have this start to build some real momentum. We're going to be showing you some of the architectural concepts as part of this presentation tonight. I'm here with my colleague, Sierra Sharon.
Good evening. I'm Sierra Sharon. I work with Mark at Cook Fox. I'm a senior associate and the project architect on the project.
Thank you. Should I stand this way? Yep, we'll do. I'm gonna stand this way so I can see the presentation here. You can go to the next page. Skip that one as well. Yep. Right. Perfect. So I won't belabor this. I know this board is very familiar with this site, but it's located on 20th Street between 10th and 11th. Consists of 2 adjoining buildings. It's an Art Deco building that's gone through many iterations over the last few years. Most recently, it was a medium security prison for women, and was unfortunately it was closed due to flooding due to Hurricane Sandy since about 2012. It's been in a warm state since then. You can hit the next slide. And just to level set a little bit about this project and how we got here. Again, we've been working with your board since, believe it or not, December of 2022, talking about this site. We put out a request for proposal in September of 2023 and designated the team that you just met here today and their proposal in July of 2024. We have taken that proposal, essentially codified that proposal into what we call a general project plan. And I'm just going to go over a few of the objectives here of the project plan. Mainly, oh, no, you can hold off on that one. One of the components here of the objectives is to restore and adaptively reuse the building. There was a new addition in the courtyard that's being built, taking the stories from 8 to 15. There's a community facility space that will be providing social services for the broader Chelsea community. The project is looking to use passive house techniques to make it a very highly energy efficient building, and it is 51% nonprofit owned, which I know is a real concern for this community board. Hit the next slide. This is just a high level components of the usage and density of the site. We can go on to the next slide. Oh, sorry, we could back to if people want to look at that, or I'll give you guys a chance to actually look at it. Sorry, I'm like running through. All right, we can go on to the next slide. I'm gonna hone in a little bit on the residential component. It's primarily a residential project here. there's up to 147 permanent income restricted dwelling units. At least 60% have to be supportive housing units. I just want to note that if you remember the press release that came out last year, we said 124. The 147 number is being used for environmental analysis purposes. We like to give ourselves a buffer. It's not really the best term to use, but like worst case scenario situation of how that impacts the general environment. So we give ourselves a little bit of a buffer for analysis purposes, but we expect it to be closer to that 124 number. The approximate unit mix is about 75% studios, 14% one bedrooms, 12% two bedrooms. Another little caveat here is that number of 75% studios, I just wanted to address that because there is a requirement to have at least 60 supportive units, which are primarily studios. So that's the reasoning for the high number of studios. And then the non-supportive units are set aside for individuals making 60 to 80% AMI. And then lastly, one of the other components here is a 15 short-term transitional residence beds operated by Urban Pathways. They're going to talk a little bit about this in the next slide, but I want to note also stop here because this was really an outgrowth of this community board, the Housing and Human Services Committee, Chelsea Land Use. We had a lot of conversations about this sort of kind of pilot program for individuals who essentially need more than just supportive services. They need than what supportive services housing provides. These are those individuals that this board identified as like falling through the cracks and need more services. So we built this working with a number of our sister agencies. We built in this program here, and I'll let Urban Pathways speak a little bit more about it.
Thanks, Angel. Just to kind of piggyback off what Angel said, I really want to commend this board and ESD for including this short-term transitional residents in this project. I think post-COVID, we've all seen a lot of folks in need in the city that need to be transitioned from kind of street homelessness to more permanent supportive housing. And I think this program, although a new one for New York State OMH, is definitely a step in the right direction. So this program is, again, a 15-unit short-term transitional residence that's serving folks experiencing homelessness. Our primary goal is to kind of get them off the street and into a somewhat stable setting and provide them a lot of wraparound services, clinical support, rehabilitation support to eventually transition them into a more stable housing environment. And so the way we plan on doing that is providing a community focus, facilitate skills building, group activities, things like that actually help folks that are used to potentially living in the street or in more institutional settings have the tools and the skills that they need to be able to, again, transition into a more stable housing environment. And so from a staffing pattern, we're planning on having 24/7 staff in this site. It's pretty robust in terms of the services and the staffing that we operate here. So we're planning on having 20 full-time employees, and that's a mix of caseworkers and counselors, clinical staff, case managers. We're going to have a nurse as well to try to minimize sort of use of ambulance services and emergencies in hospitals and things like that. Again, providing that stability that folks need to be able to recover and eventually transition. The timing here for folks is primarily we have a max of about 120 days. Our goal is to, within 48 hours of being kind of admitted into the program, we'll do an assessment with their case managers, figure out kind of what their end goal would be, and then really kind of devise a plan that helps them feel in control of their destiny and their situation to eventually stabilize them and move them through the program. Obviously, if we exceed those 120 days, we're not going to obviously release them. We want to have folks have the support that they need. And so whether that's internal resources that Urban Pathways has or linkages with other not-for-profit organizations that do similar work, our goal is to obviously try to meet their needs, but if not, find other ways for them to be able to stabilize themselves. Again, the goal here is to primarily take folks that are experiencing street homelessness and rotate them into more stable housing. And so when we're able to do that, we'll obviously create more space within the program to admit other people that need these supportive services. We'll also have our staff on site to do kind of walkthroughs, room checks, things like that, just to make sure that folks are receiving the care that they need. They'll be trained in de-escalation and crisis responsiveness. And this program will have its own dedicated lobby and entryway with a dedicated elevator that comes to the 3rd floor. And so that will be a controlled access from the 3rd floor. We'll have kind of CCTVs that can see who's coming in and who's coming out of the program. And we'll be able to monitor that in our offices. And last but not least, I think it's important for our organization and for the folks that we serve to build a good rapport with their neighbors. And so we're going to obviously coordinate with other organizations and community groups in the area so that we can provide, obviously, the right support for the folks that need it in our programs. So with that, I guess I'll pass it along to Cook Fox.
I think we have one more slide on the GPP, and then we can just go on to the next slide. Just going to wrap up a little bit on the GPP's objectives here. As noted, character defining architecture features of the exterior will be repaired and restored in consultation with SHPO, our State Historic Preservation Office. I'm sorry, in our State Historic Preservation Office, including the brick and polychromatic terracotta ornamentation. The new addition is being set back from the street wall of the historic building. It will be clad in masonry to complement the historic building facade. The interior historic chapel will be restored and adaptively reused for programmatic space. And although the preservation of the pool was unobtainable, the tile mosaic of the interior pool will be reinstalled in the residential lobby. And then I'm going to actually turn it over now to Cook Fox to go through the building schematics.
Oh, great. Okay. No, it's fine. We're going to go one at a time, or we'll work together. As I said, we're both from Cook Fox Architects, and we're really fascinated by this idea of reusing existing buildings. And we really... Okay. Okay. Karaoke night? Okay. We really welcome this idea of reusing some of the existing urban infrastructure in our city. And the first thing that we do, whether it's a landmark building, it's in a landmark district or not, we dive into the history of the building. And I know a lot of people already know a lot about the history of the building, and it was discussed a little bit. But this building was originally built in 1931 as the Siemens Building, a YMCA building, and later used as a women's prison in the 70s up until Superstorm Sandy. So again, we visited the building, dove really deep into the history of the building and became really fascinated by it. And we set up some strategies around how we're going to preserve the building and how we're going to reuse the building. One of the primary things we really wanted to do was to try to keep the most visible part of the building itself, the exterior street-facing facade. So this is it's a housing project. So reusing all the windows and reusing the relationship of the existing floor slabs and all the structural infrastructure that goes along with it. And we also want to rebuild and restore that corner entry, which is was altered a little bit during the prison phase of the history of the building. And then on the setback is actually set, the new construction overbuild is set way back. It's significantly deeper setback than is actually required by current underlying zoning. And that was for a couple reasons. One is that it really allowed the new part to recede a little bit and for the existing building to be the primary focus. It gives us this amenities terrace, but it also, I'll show in a couple of slides, it allowed us to build right behind the very skinny bar of the original Siemens YMCA building. And that helped with the strategy of keeping some of the original structure. And on that new build, we looked around at obviously the materiality of the existing base building of brick, but also the context of neighborhood buildings, and thought it was really appropriate to reuse brick, but tweak the texture and the color a little bit so it was clearly a new modern construction. Another thing I should mention, you can keep the slide up, is that the prison did close down as a result of Superstorm Sandy. So focusing in on the resiliency and flood mitigation components is very much part of the strategy of restoration of this building. So in this diagram, you can see that the taller yellow part to the left, that is all the new construction. So it actually sits in the blue bar to the right. That is the street-facing portion at 20th Street. So the new construction actually sits right behind, inside that existing courtyard, and the entire existing bar of masonry, the photograph over on the right, is that courtyard. So that will remain intact and become interior of the new building. So it'll become a double-loaded corridor. The portion to the north towards 20th Street will be the existing building using those existing windows, and the portion to the south in the existing courtyard will be all new construction. So here's a plan of that existing building, and it's a super skinny bar. As I said, it was built as this YMCA for short-term housing. But one thing we realized is that the module of the housing that we're looking to build into this project actually fit in perfectly into that bar. So that really lent itself to keeping that existing building and then building inside that courtyard. So there'd be a corridor, and then the rest of the new construction is just to inside that courtyard. Next slide will show the current plan. So where that image is pointed to is that masonry wall, which will then become exposed as kind of a relic of the existing building. And here's a rendering of that setback up at the top of the existing building. So it sets back approximately 30 feet, the entire width of that existing bar. And that allows us to have this kind of amenity terrace, but it also pulls back the new construction far away from the existing building and far away from the street. So it makes it a lot less visible than if it was sitting right on top of it. And it provides nice views and provides this kind of amenity garden for the residents of the building. There are some images over on the right of that existing building. So as I said, using masonry as the materiality, but really trying to take some cues from the way that the masonry was articulated in the original design as the way that we're going to design the new construction. So clearly in a new modern way, but being complementary with the existing building. Sierra's going to walk through some of the nitty-gritty of the zoning. Here you go.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm going to walk through the zoning and the proposed zoning overrides that are included in the general project plan to get us to essentially this proposal. So as I'm sure you're well aware, the site is primarily in the C63 subarea D district, with a small portion in the northeast in the C62 subarea E. So we have initially looked at the site as if the entire thing were in the C63 in terms of the underlying zoning, which allows for a base maximum floor area ratio of 5.0. There are provisions to allow that FAR to be increased to 7.5 by including qualifying affordable housing, such as inclusionary housing, qualifying senior housing, highline improvement bonuses, or a highline transfer corridor. So we currently, believe that the site is underbuilt for its potential. Next slide, please. So this, I know, is a lot of text. I will high level go through it, and then we have some graphics to help support this. So these are the proposed zoning overrides that we included in the design guidelines for the project plan. The first is the FAR. So as I said, the maximum base FARs can be increased to 7.5. We're proposing a max FAR of 8.5 across the entirety of the site without utilizing those bonuses and transfers. The primary reason that we have increased this is that setback that Mark mentioned at the overbuild. As we were learning more about the building, getting the structural analysis done, we extended that north wall of the addition further north to align with the structure below to optimize that efficiency. So that needed a little bit more area to make that move. The second override is for the maximum height. Again, the sub areas were slightly different between D and E, with a max height of 250 feet in sub area D and 125 feet in sub area E, with a sky exposure plane. So when we initially responded to the RFP, we were considering the sky exposure plane. Again, when we had to or decided to move that north wall a little bit further north, we decided to eliminate the sky exposure plane and just set a max building height of 190 feet across the entire site. And that is measured from the design flood elevation, which is about 5 feet above sidewalk on this site. The next one is about the signage. So we'll show an image in a minute, but one of our proposals is to replicate the historic YMCA sign, blade sign that was on 11th Avenue. So this would allow an override to extend further than the 18 inches over the property line and up to 95 feet above curb level. And then the last one is related to indoor recreation space, which normally in zoning requires 9.5% of the floor area of the room in terms of the glazing provided. Because we're proposing to reuse that historic chapel as recreation space, which does not have the 9.5% minimum glazed area, and it's not transparent glazed, this would allow an override to preserve those stained glass windows and not put more openings in that historic space. So next slide, please. So this is a diagram of that zoning envelope, which I know the text is very small, I apologize, illustrates the maximum height of 190 feet from design flood elevation, so about 195 feet above the sidewalk. The lightest portion on the roof is the mechanical bulkhead, which is a permitted obstruction that does exceed that maximum height, but up to about 200 feet. So not too far beyond that envelope. And then the setback at 20th Street, we've set at a minimum of 20 feet. The actual setback of what we're proposing to align with that structure below is about 25 feet. Next slide, please. And then the signage that I mentioned. So the photo all the way to the right is the historic sign on the YMCA building that's not currently on the building. And the rendering in the middle is our proposal to recreate that blade sign for building identification signage. Next slide. And I will pass it back to Angel.
Right, so I'm going to just wrap up on a few environmental assessment points here. So in February 20th, just this past month, our ESD board adopted the findings for the environmental assessment. Essentially, ESD is the lead agency on the SECRA, and there was a determination that this action, the proposed project, will be an unlisted action under SECRA, and we have prepared an environmental assessment that evaluated whether the project may have significant adverse impacts on the environment. ESD's board on February 20th concluded that the project as implemented with the GPP will result in no significant adverse impact on the environment. And that, again, determination was based on an environmental assessment. We've provided that environmental assessment to the board, so if folks have some time to read about 400 pages, there's a lot of information on there. You can go to the next slide, Jesse. As you all know, with the environmental reviews, there's a number of different components that are evaluated, whether that be open space, air quality, things of that nature. I'm going to just speak on a little bit of a few of the chapters in here. Urban design and visual resources. As you can see here, we're working in consultation with the State Preservation Office on the historic preservation of the, and with our environmental consultants and historic preservation consultants in an effort to ensure that the building is visually complementary to the historic structure. Given that the building is being constructed on its existing block and it's not necessarily changing the block forms, there was a determination that the project wouldn't result in an adverse impact to the visual resources and urban design. Similarly, for land use, there's not necessarily any changes to the current land use of the site, as well as impacting existing land use in the area. So there was, again, a determination that no significant adverse impacts on land use and zoning based on that environmental analysis. You can go over to the next slide as well. Shadows was something that was also looked at, given that there is this addition to the site, creating from 8 to 15 stories. An assessment was done to see whether or not it would impact shadows in the area on certain resources. We did identify that new shadows would be placed on a portion of several nearby resources in one or more seasons, but because the new shadows would be limited in coverage and duration, it would not result in significant adverse shadow impacts to these resources. Historic preservation, as constituted the project, would adversely impact historic resources. We created an alternative analysis that explored ways to avoid or reduce these impacts. The proposed project was identified as the preferred alternative, and that's codified in a letter of resolution between ESD and the development team, in which measures to these adverse impacts were developed. And some of the measures that are included in that LOR, that's also in a package that we sent over with the environmental review. There's the letter of resolution is included in that as well. Measures were included to repair and restore the street-facing facades, adaptive reuse of the chapel, and a construction protection plan for historic building, just to name a few. But there's additional measures in terms of frequent contact with SHPO and different oversight that SHPO has on the project. So you could change over to the next slide as well. And this is our public review process here. Just wanted to flag where we are. So again, on February 20th, ESD board adopted the proposed general project plan and authorized ESD to hold a public hearing on the GPP. And they made a determination of no significant impact on the environment. We're here today to present that GPP and brief EA to the community board. We do have a scheduled public hearing on March 26th. This is a virtual public hearing where individuals who would like to provide comments on the general project plan, not the environmental assessment, the general project plan, you can attend in person. Well, no, sorry, I said in person, I did it again. Virtual public hearing, you attend virtually and provide testimony on the project. There is a subsequent 30-day comment period as well. So if you can't make it to the hearing, you can also submit something in writing. And you can find that information on esd.ny.gov. And you can, it's like public notices page, and you can find how to register. And then we do expect to go to our board for affirmation of the general project plan and related items for final approvals in Q2 of this year. And then I'll just open up to questions.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, we'll go to the committee. Rodney, I saw you first. I'm going to give you the mic.
I'll run Mike. Will all of the residents have access to the amenities in the building?
Yep. What's in me?
Here, Wendell, do you want to come join me up here? Sure, great. So all of the residents who live in the affordable housing, well, the short-term transitional, the 15 beds will have their own amenity spaces separate.
Oh, separate. Oh, so, yeah, that leads to my other, is there a diagram or a picture showing their entry? Like, they have a different entry, right?
Yes, they do. Have we sent that? Okay.
But the folks from the Osborne reentry, they'll have I guess, the general access to the amenities and the same entry that everyone else will?
Yep.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Hi, thank you. Will the chapel be open to the public?
No, it will not. It'll be
Just-
used. It'll
Just to the
be-
residents?
Yes, it'll be used as part of Osborne's amenity space, and they'll operate it for all of the residents.
And then my second question is trees on the sidewalk surrounding the building. We would like a lot of trees with very large tree beds.
Sounds lovely. Don't we all? Well, of course, abide by DOT and the street tree plan as required.
Yes, you can add trees, you can talk to parks, the chairs can help you do that. So we're giving you, we would like trees back. Thank you.
I appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. This was a lovely presentation. I have a whole bunch of questions that start first. The elevator bulkhead on the original structure, which has masonry cladding on all four sides of it, that stays, right? That's part of I saw in one of the images.
Yeah. Can you pull up one of the renderings of the full building?
Yes, we are preserving it. It would be great to see the rendering.
Yeah, I saw it in one of the images that it was there.
The addition will come up and
Is it right up
abut
against it? It
we're-
looks like,
We haven't finalized the details of exactly how that will happen.
okay, I
Um,
had a reason for asking.
Yep, sorry, go back one where on the terrace view is probably the best. Yeah.
There it
Okay.
is. There it is. And you can see in this image that the decorative glazed terracotta tile ornamentation is there, and it exists on all four sides of that structure, because we are painfully aware of the loss of those medallions. Many, many of them were removed very unfortunately in the dead of night. And I understand that a part of this proposal is to restore them, to put them back where they belong, using in-kind material. In other words, you're going to replace them with the same stuff that got thrown out.
Yeah, so we're working with SHPO and with a conservationist, as well as our facade consultants and a historic preservation consultant to determine those means and methods. We have not finalized those means and methods yet, and we're going to work in concert with SHPO.
Well, they are very beautiful, and they are in the shape of the prow of a ship. I don't know if you've noticed that. And many, many of them are gone. We did a tour. This group had a tour of the facilities a couple of years ago now. And we saw, and I photographed, on the floor in the basement, laid out, were the remains of the ones that barely were able to be salvaged out of a dump truck somewhere. And that's your template, I assume. I look forward to seeing that restoration. I have seen that kind of work done improperly in other historic buildings where they just fake it with, plastic overlays or something, and that's just not acceptable.
I think what you just hit on is really important, because our goal here is to create a long-lasting restoration. We don't want something that's we're going to have to continue to repair and adjust. And so these are, of course, we will rely on our professionals and consultants who are working on the project. I certainly am not a conservationist by trade, but we will work closely with them.
Glad to hear it. Altogether different question. There's an enormous basement underneath that building. What's going to happen to it? It's full of all sorts of mechanicals now. I mean, all those gorgeous boilers and stuff. But, basically it's all runs the risk of going underwater on a regular basis if it isn't already. What happens to it, that space?
In this case, the basement, a full basement, is actually only under the annex part of the existing building, not in the base of the other building. But because as I said, we're really trying to work to deal with the flood mitigation issues. We're in a flood zone. So current zoning for flood won't allow any mechanical equipment down there. It
No,
can
I'm
only-
aware of that. I just
can
wondered,
only be used
because
for
you can't
storage.
use it to,
That's
for your
right.
boilers and
That's right. So,
water systems or anything else.
right. So we're working with Camber, who is talking to some potential tenants for the ground floor that could potentially use a bit of that space at the
At their
site.
own risk.
No,
Yeah.
we're dealing with all the flood mitigation issues that will be required to.
There's a significant section of the EIS that deals with flood mitigation, a significant section, like maybe like 40, 50 pages.
Well, it would be nice to think that that space isn't lost forever for some kind of function. I remember seeing a lot of pretty exotic equipment down there. I know it's all dead now. About the primary entrance to the building, that magnificent thing, there are light fixtures that are still extant on either side, wall sconces, kind of above. You can't see them now because they're in back of the scaffolding, but they are there. Is it your intention to rescue them and restore them? Do you think? I hope they're still there anyway.
Maybe go to the signage photo, actually. Forward. It's in the zoning section. Thank you for driving. There you go.
Yeah, they're
So
high up.
here and
Yes,
here,
yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, I know the people online can't see what I'm pointing to, but
Okay, if-
yes, part of the design guidelines were to restore as, in as much as possible, the
if they are,
historic entry.
if they are still there and rescuable, they could, if they're not restorable, they could be the template for replication,
Yes.
which would be really
Um,
amazing. And
Yep.
I don't want to be hogging this microphone, but I have one more thing to say, which is that I know that Liberty Landing is sort of a nice alliterative title, but I really don't like it at all. And I think a lot of people like me would like to know if there's some flexibility there, and maybe we could come up with something with the word Chelsea in it, or so I don't have a specific idea in my head.
How about this? Why don't you guys brainstorm, come back to us, and we're happy to discuss.
I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Okay, I was just wondering, excuse me, about the zoning override. What's the process?
So ESD's process is not the Euler process. So we have the general project plan, which allows us to essentially override local zoning. This is part of the UDC Act. Our design guidelines are essentially in lieu of the zoning. So when you approve the GPP and design guidelines, you approve the redoing of
So
the
we don't have to
zoning.
do a ULURP or anything like that?
No, there's no.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
I understand the lobby entrance has to be raised because of the floodplain. How do you handle accessibility there? And will the main corner entrance be accessible?
Okay. There are ramps inside the building. That's how we primarily will be handling the accessibility.
I think it was about 4 feet or something that it's
It is.
raised.
It is quite
a lot of ramp.
It is quite significant, yeah.
Have you resolved that with floor plans yet?
We're at early stages, but conceptually, yeah, we have worked through the necessary length of the ramp and how it would integrate into the lobby, yes.
Okay, was there any thought given to retaining the pool kind of as a community amenity? A lot of us learned how to swim at YMCA's.
We would have loved to. It would have been wonderful, but there's a lot of operational and conflicting programs that are packed into this really beautiful but tight space. And so we're so pleased to be able and honored to be able to preserve the pool tiles as a memory and of that space, but we're unable to preserve the pool and obtain the programming that the canoe board would like to see here.
Okay, I read also that some of the windows might need to be enlarged for minimum light and air for the dwelling spaces. Can you say more about that, or whether that, you think that'll be needed?
We're still studying that as we get to know the building a little bit better, but of course, we want to be sure that we're achieving all of the livability standards that a current up-to-date residential building would require.
Yeah, it gets a little bit touchy because some of the spandrels actually have terracotta in them and they're centered on the spandrels. So if you drop the sill, you'd get into issues. Is there any opportunity for a waiver given the historic character of the building?
Yeah, so it's a very active conversation that we're having specifically about windows right now internally. So I appreciate your comment and certainly agree with some of your concerns.
I understand for some things waivers are more available if a building is listed on the state and national register. Is there any thought of doing that with this building?
Yes, potentially. And we're very grateful for ESD's assistance and guidance through the state waivers and assistance with DOB as well. So we feel very confident that we'll be able to achieve.
Okay, will any of the existing terracotta be able to be restored in place and retained?
We have not been able to study the existing terracotta yet. We have a facade consultant on board who's currently undertaking that initiative. So I can't comment to that at the moment.
Okay, and the replacement terracotta will be in kind. It'll be actual terracotta.
As I mentioned earlier, working with SHPO and our conservationist, our facade consultant and historic preservation consultant to maintain and the best means and methods for long-term restoration.
Yeah, I know that Cook Fox has worked with Boston Valley, which is one of the major terracotta providers on your office building on the High Line. So you already have a relationship with them. Have you started having them take a look at it at all?
No.
There's a mention also, I think, of street side railings in the literature. Can you tell me more about that?
Are you referring to the
Maybe on the 20th Street
second floor
facade?
present? The preservation of I think you'd have to go back to the
Where you're talking about the grills?
floor. Yeah, grills. Are you referring to that?
I don't know whether it was grill or railing in the text. Right now, the first floor has all of this kind of garden supply concrete block in it. Do we know what that originally was, and will we be going back to it?
So the only original masonry grills on the first floor are the two that flank the main entry. The rest, the garden center variety is not historic, obviously. That will be coming out because of the floodplain. We are currently actively working with our flood consultant to establish what that glazing will be. It will likely need to be flood-proof glazing. The second floor Juliet balconies that are not there, but were there historically, part of the design guidelines were to replace those if possible. We need to evaluate the structural integrity and be able to evaluate if we can replace those. But we will do our very best to maybe not replicate one-to-one, but do something that is complementary to the historic intent.
Thank you. Will the existing rear wall kind of be encapsulated or exposed? How's that going to be treated?
The courtyard that we're bringing into the interior?
The existing courtyard wall.
Yes. So from levels 5 through 8, where it exists, so the lower levels, it doesn't exist on 1 through 4. So 5 through 8, where we have the residential levels, that will then become our interior corridor wall. So we'll restore it, clean it up. There will need to be some infill, obviously, where we don't need those openings into the units, but the idea is that we would try to reuse the window opening as a door opening to the units.
Oh, okay. So there will be some adjustments to that.
Yeah.
Just one thought on the sign. You know, historically, it advertised the building up and down the waterfront to sailors getting off of ships. You know, I wish you'd actually consider leaving the building named Siemens House because it would kind of explain why the sign is there and what it's doing, and the name is no longer in use. So just a thought.
Take it into consideration.
Betty has a question online.
Do I get it?
I'm unmuting. Okay, can I talk now? Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, so maybe I'll go through them all. I don't know. I was wondering, in terms of the transitional residents, by the way, I just want to say how delighted I am about this program. I just have dealt with this building for years, so I'm familiar with many of the details. For the transitional residents, are people settled there voluntarily or involuntarily?
Yeah, it's all voluntarily. So they have, it's all
What?
voluntarily, so they have to
All
come in,
voluntarily?
yeah, their own volition, obviously, and then we'll move into the
Okay.
program.
Will people from the community have access to any space in the building for any reason?
There'll be a ground floor community facility space, which is approximately 10,000 square feet, and that will be available to community members.
Like a conference room? Is that what you mean?
It'll be operated by a community facility provider, and how they choose to operate it and the programming they choose will be aligned with their mission and goals. So it may have public space available. We do not know at this moment.
Okay, I mean, I guess maybe it would be good if the community board could have some suggestions or dialogue about what might happen in the community facility, right? Who is there a organization who's in charge of that?
So the development team is looking and speaking actively with various community organizations. We, of course, are similar to the name. We're happy to hear any recommendations that this community has, but we're speaking with a number of them actively.
Okay, great. This beautiful garden that you had, the green part, I was wondering, is that going to be part of any kind of gardening effort by the residents, or is that just part of the landscaping?
I think this would be a great opportunity for Osborne to just, maybe Christina, do you want to speak just briefly about Osborne's activities and what you do at Marcus Garvey? Because they're awesome. And that could highlight what would happen at the garden and just in general. So I'm going to pass my mic over to Christina, VP.
Thank you. Hi. We do have horticultural programs that that we currently run at our other supportive housing sites, along with lots of other programs. If you'd like to hear some of the programs, I can run through the list. Yeah, okay. So we do tech support. We also do financial literacy classes. Oh, I got the list that I sent you. So self-care, family values, anger management. We do a cooking class. A lot of these are even facilitated by some of our residents. So actually, when we opened up our other supportive housing site, we had like their own community board, and we asked them, what would you like to see? What would be helpful for you? And we took those all into consideration, and we came up with all these different programs.
Oh, terrific. Great. One last quick question. The roof, is it entirely used for infrastructure, or is some of the roof going to be used for other uses?
So the 8th floor roof will have part of the sort of residential amenity space, the gardening, as you mentioned, but the rest of it will be for reserved for mechanical space.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Josephine?
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. It looks great. Will there be a outdoor space, communal outdoor space specifically for the short-term residences?
If possible, we will do our best. Right now, at the moment, we're assessing how much mechanical space will need to be reserved on the 3rd floor. But if not, then we intend to reserve space for the short-term transitional residents off of the 3rd floor roof.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Here's my second bite at the apple. Yeah, I'm going to take us back to the swimming pool, the sad, lost, lamented swimming pool. I mean, it's a terrible sacrifice, but we'll bite the bullet. However, the tile work, the mosaic in that tile all around. I have pictures of the whole thing, and it is in damn good shape. Is it possible to preserve every inch of it and use as much as possible throughout the facility, not just in the lobby area?
That's our goal.
Or the main entrance?
We're still studying and seeing how much we can preserve.
It
and
is just
seeing-
spectacular stuff and worth rescuing every inch of it.
Absolutely. Yep, that's our intention. And
You want to say something, or are you just passing? Go ahead.
Thank you. There's one little section you talked about the environment in the EIS, but you didn't talk about sewer, water, solar. Would you say something more about that for me, please?
Yeah, we did study that part. I just noted a few of the items there, but we did study water, sewer. Those are all a part of the environmental assessment. I'll have to look to see whether or not it required further analysis, but we can get back to you. Is there a specific question on the water, sewer? Oh.
No, can you hang on, because we have other committee members who want to speak who haven't spoken yet.
Water, sewer, of course, but I didn't hear anything about solar voltaics, any space on the mechanical roof for capturing some of the sun's energy. I don't know what you plan to do about that.
Can I? Okay.
Yes, so Camber recently brought on a solar consultant to do a part of the design guidelines were to do a solar feasibility study, which is also part of New York City code to evaluate what roofs will be green roof and what roofs are candidates for PV. So the 9th floor roof is the amenity terrace. The remaining roofs that aren't MEP at the bulkhead or the 3rd floor are being evaluated for either green roof or PV. In process.
Okay, Brad?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Did HSS agree with the separate entrance and basically the temporary residents being excluded from the entire building? I mean, it's such a great place. You know, sometimes people need to meet somebody on the 8th floor and see what that happens with their life. So I'm just curious on what they had said to that. Because to me, that sounds like a poor door. I don't really want to say that, but I was wondering what HSS had to say on that.
Well, thankfully, Joe wants to go next. I'll let him respond, but I will say that no, they do not consider it a poor door. And I think we're really pleased with the way this is coming. I mean, this is a totally different offering from the rest of the building. So it feels that it should be separate.
Okay, so a couple things. One is first, which I forgot to ask when we were briefed. I'm making the assumption. Yeah, sure. Well, it ties to this, which is integration. So first, my question is, all the units, supportive and not, are integrated throughout the building, correct?
Correct.
Great. On all floors.
Correct.
And then Brad, specifically the issue with the short-term facility, the social service needs of the clients there are so much deeper and they need so much more help and assistance. It really does make sense to have a separate entrance and a separate lobby and security, because I can tell you from my personal experience in running supportive housing, trust me, the kind of clients we're talking about here could not integrate in so easily. They need a lot more work to get there. So we really talked about this and felt it was appropriate. So I have a few questions for you. First, I've forgotten in the whole question of what's being preserved, there's lots of sort of plaques and things in there. Are those being preserved and how are they being worked into the community room? There's a lot of dedication things.
There is, yes. We have not addressed that yet, but you're completely correct. And we'll have, when we have our historic preservation consultants do a site visit, they can do an assessment. But if there's a way to work them in, I think that's a great suggestion.
I think we're going to recommend that you work them in because they're part of the history of the building.
I agree. I do also think that it's important that Osborne, who will be serving a population that is formerly incarcerated, have an opportunity to review, as a number of those plaques are commemorating the correctional facility. And I just want to be acknowledged that the tenancy that we're serving here and the sensitivity to their experience.
I'm talking more about the plaques that are talking about seamen and
Oh, sure. Yeah,
that,
those
the
ones.
stuff, that history of the building.
Sure. Yeah.
I get you.
Okay.
The other part, yes.
Okay.
The Inga brought up trees. So I think I would ask that we include in the letter that our board does, that you include the number of street trees. We have issues always about vaults where we end up not having street trees. But in this case, you don't need vaults in operation because all the mechanicals are going up to the top of the building anyway. And it needs trees and swales. And that really makes a difference. And I know Marty's big on the swales. And in this case, useful to absorb water. The second, the community room with the chapel, I'm going to really recommend that we include something that be given access so it's used for the community. Many of our supportive housing and residential buildings make their community rooms available for community use, for meetings and things like that. It helps integrate the community in, people know what's going on, and they can see this great chapel and everything. So it should not be used exclusively for tenants. It's very good to bring community in to demystify things that are happening there. Next one is, Pam mentioned the terracotta medallions. The ones that have to come off because they're adjacent to the addition, could we request that you use them somewhere else in the building, even if it's inside, in order to have those reused again? The window sizing for the architect, just a question. I've never had an issue where when you do renovation, everything's grandfathered in. You're not going to meet certain square footages, but you're code compliant. Why would that be an issue on window sizing here?
Very active conversation in our internal group right now.
Give a little more activity so we understand.
Because of the degree of thanks. The degree that we're touching the building, we are under new code for what we're doing to the building. So we're in active discussion, as Joanna has talked about. Obviously, I think we're in alignment on this as well because it's very expensive to make those larger, and we're very sensitive to the historic fabric of that facade. So we're in complete alignment. We don't want to make those openings any bigger. So we're working with code consultants and we're working with the state in order to, and as well as facade consultant about various windows.
I can just point you to a building done in the community, which all of us left a facade and 15 feet of it behind, and all the window openings were kept and found compliant. Maybe give you a precedent to work on. The community facility operator, I understand that you're seeking one. I think it would be good to have a separate conversation with the board talking about kinds of uses, because you should really get our input on this because we spend so much time trying to figure out how to get these multiple programs in there.
Sure, we welcome that.
And that's it. Thank you very much.
Brad, last question?
Yeah, I
Brad?
mean, I agree with you, Joe. I just wanted it on the record that we agreed with this separate entrance for the services, because usually we really advocate the other way. But in this circumstance, I just wanted to get it out there publicly. Thanks for responding. And by the way, guys, this is a long time coming. You've done a wonderful job. You really incorporated what we asked for. We love being part of pilot programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Jesse, would you mind just running through what the next steps are? Because I kind of lost the train from exec to full board to, because I know it's not usual, right?
It is unusual. Very quickly, I mean, as Angel explained, there's a hearing on the 26th, right? There's a hearing on the 26th on the general project plan. So it's everything you saw today. So that is before our full board, but after exec. So typically what we'll have is if there's something that you guys as a committee can come to a consensus about, you'll discuss it, you'll put it together, you'll vote it out out of the committee, it'll go to full board. But in the meantime, you can put together your, top line summary, bring it to exec on the 24th, discuss it there, get approval by exec to be able to provide a testimony if someone wants to attend the virtual hearing on the 26th. So that is what we've done in the past. And then the letter, yes, the letter will come later and we'll go its normal process at the full board. And we would be submitting that technically during their comment period, their open comment period. So they would be receiving that as comment on the GPP. So it's timing wise, it actually works quite well, I think.
Great, thank you. So then, I mean, what I've heard is trees, working with the development team on a community facility and community facility use. Swales, I always say that wrong. Bioswales, potential community use of the chapel, preservation of plaques, the name, the light fixtures, but I mean, I think I'm not getting, my vibe is that the answer is yes, to the greatest extent that everyone can do what has already been considered. I mean, I think that, are we ready to write a letter with those extra comments in them, or are we ready to bring that to exec and well, that's already there. Like the community use and the community facility partner? I mean, Marty, I would say that the real big swings here are not in process, but we have the 30 days. So we're talking about, I mean, this team has been willing to work with us on everything. So, I mean, I'm not super concerned personally. It's really a question of who's going to run the community facility and is it accessible to the community, and can we have more trees or trees at all? Because there aren't any right now. Okay. Are you going to do that at HHHS? Okay, so we're going to have the development team memorialize the process. Is not the GPP? Sorry, just help me understand. I'm sorry.
We should get this on.
Yeah.
We should get this on mic, 'cause I'm sure the crowd is wondering.
The GPP is the public process, but when a developer comes with something like this that's got a bunch of elements, both community facilities and architectural things, we ask them to, like an inclusionary deal, to put in writing, to commit back to what they're going to do. So preserve the exterior fixtures to the greatest extent possible. So we know, so we don't forget and get confused going down the road. That's all. And it's like bullet, bullet, bullet. And they send us back saying, thanks for coming. Here's what we intend to do. Community facility, we're working on it. We'll come back to you and talk about it, that kind of thing. You're memorializing the conversation.
That's fine. Yeah, we can absolutely do that. I mean, I'm just struggling with like what are the big things that aren't memorialized already in the GPP besides trees, and like affordability's there. So I'm confused a little bit, but we can memorialize what we talked about tonight. Yes.
I'm clarifying, it's the developer memorializes back to the community board. Not
right.
We say things, but then they say, yes, we're doing X, Y, or Z. It's a way to keep people, some of this team may leave, forget about stuff going forward.
Sure. Willing? Yeah, we'll send bullet points to them. Yes. So we're not really voting on anything because we should, okay, so are we voting on the memorializing the bullet points? Sorry, Jesse.
I think that is, yeah, I heard a rumor over there in the Paul section about saying that you would be recommending approval of the GPP with, with certain conditions. And I think the question going back about what Joe is asking is, and I'm not asking ESC to commit to this right now, but to get a commitment from them about being able to provide something in writing before the full board. Yes, from the development team. Yeah.
So
Does
do we
that-
have a motion?
Take that, pass that, go.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the GPP. I'd like to make a motion to approve the GPP as presented with gratitude to the development team for meeting the objectives of the board, and to include a list of bullet points sent to the developer that they reiterate in a commitment letter to us, acknowledging the issues that we raised tonight on the process and the deliverables.
All in favor? Thanks, Betty.
Aye.
Joseph? Thanks. Is there anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? You two keep your hands up? No? Okay, good. Anyone present not eligible? Anyone abstaining? Great. Unanimous. I didn't raise my hand, but obviously.
Give it up, everybody. Give it up.
Thank you, everybody. And we
Thank
know
you
you're,
very much.
we're going to slowly move to our next agenda item as folks clear out of the room. Enjoy your evening. Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda. This is an LPC application for 140 West 18th. It's related to a painting of the facade and a front gate replacement. There was a briefing on the 7th. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Pamela, for being part of that. I think Carrie and I sat in on that. And who's doing the presentation? Do we have a presenter? And I see we're just getting ready to get our virtual. Well, that really cleared the room. Really cleared it out. Literally. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
See my presentation? I don't know.
We're all listening. Go. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay. So we're modifying the existing building. First of all, my name is Billy Georgopoulos. I'm the architect on the project. We're working closely with ownership. They're the actual second and third floor tenant in the space. And we're looking to modify the first floor from garage use, which they left approximately 4 months ago, into a retail space. So we're looking to modify the storefront. Okay. If you want to, okay. So we were looking to modify the storefront to the existing gates and install storefronts there where previously there were carriage doors. So that's essentially the whole proposal. Also, we're modifying the entry on the left of the building. If you can flip to the next slide, okay. We're modifying the entry on the left of the building to mimic the arched doorway opening, similar to the historic picture that's on the left, but also we're trying to match a building that's down the block, which we have a slide at the end. So essentially, that's our proposal for this portion of the building. And, kind of very basic. On the second floor, on the upper right-hand window, we are shifting it over and rebuilding a portion of the brick pier because for some reason there was an offset on that window over time. So that's really what we're doing on the upper portion. We're painting the facade red. So we're basically going to try to match the building down the block. That's very similar to this one. So this is our proposal.
And that's the proposal.
And that's it. It's not so extensive as the last one.
Questions from the committee?
That's the building that we're looking to mimic.
Oh, here we go. Right there.
And I do have I can share my screen with some additional pictures that are close-ups of this building. And I also have So, you know, if you want to look at Google, like Google views, we can take a look at that. If that's helpful.
Okay. Well, hi, thank you. I have two questions. When we did our pre-meeting meeting, we discussed the possibility that your owners there would consider not painting, but to clean the paint off of the bricks and of the facade and bring it back to its original appearance, which would match some of the other buildings in that row, I believe. And also, I had a personal preference that you not try to correct the sort of crooked sloping situation at the far west end of the window on the second floor. Leave it as it is. It is an indication of what happens over time, and it's handled. It looks fine. It's intriguing in a way. If anybody who happens to look up might say, "Oh my goodness, look." Anyway, those were two things. I think I brought both of those things up in our earlier meeting. Was any consideration given to either of those comments?
We did speak to them regarding the window. They can go either way. You know, it's up to the community board for the modification. As far as the painting of the brick, they want to make both the buildings similar because it is one. Technically, the landmark portion is only 140. 142 is not landmarked. But we do want to have some consistency since it is one ownership. So
can we go back to that picture of that facade?
Sure.
Yeah. So say again.
So if you go to the previous previous slide. So the building, so 140, which is the 2-story, and 142, which is the 3-story building. That's under one ownership. Actually, it's utilized. The second floor is utilized as one tenant. It's the Aikido studio. So they have the mats on the right-hand building, and then the locker room and everything in the lobby is on the left on the second floor. So it is under one ownership. So we want to try to match the building. If we did remove the bricks are different. It won't really get the look that they're looking for. That's why they wanted to, and also it's more cost effective to paint. I mean, we'll try to scrape to remove some of the paint as much as we can, but removing all of it will be a little bit difficult because it's been painted so many times. So.
Well, okay, as I think I commented before, painting that kind of brick, particularly the common brick, is ultimately a very damaging thing because once moisture gets behind it, it spalls the face of the existing brick, and then you're really in trouble. But I understand where you're going with this. The wooden portions of the windows will be restored.
Those windows are actually new. They've been replaced.
They are in good condition?
Yes, they are. Yep.
Okay.
We're just proposing to paint them. And we also did go in and see if the brick arch was there on the left from the interior.
Yes, and?
It wasn't.
No.
It's been dismantled.
Too bad. Okay. Well, thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Actually, does anyone else have any questions?
Okay. I'm sorry. Say again, Dave.
You know, I think at this point I would make a motion to approve with the condition that the upper right window not be corrected, and with a line encouraging the owner to remove the paint down to the brick. Would that be a motion you would approve of, Pamela? Okay, that's been seconded.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we didn't get to do community. Okay. All right. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Oh, sorry, sorry. In favor. Right. Okay. Brad, is your hand up?
No, I don't understand the window thing, so
Okay.
I'm not voting yes. I
Okay,
don't
sorry.
understand.
We're just checking for reaction. Okay,
'Cause
so
I can't
opposed.
see, you know, I
Opposed
don't.
at this point. Mike, is your hand up for opposed? It seems like it's down now.
No, I'm in favor.
In favor. Brad, is your hand up for opposed? I'm sorry, we're just trying to check the Zoom here. And
I'm abstaining.
abstain. Yes, we were just getting to abstain. And when we should, those of you who are online, you are expected to be on camera when you vote. So I believe, Brad, you have an abstaining. Brad, you've already indicated you wanted to abstain. A reminder, you should be on camera. Mike, same for you when you vote. And I think present not eligible will be our last one. And we've got our abstention. Jesse, you got the count? Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. We don't know. Do you need help there, Brad? Okay, good. All right, there we go. Great. Thank you, Brad. Thank you very much. Okay. And does anybody want to volunteer to write the letter? Thank you, David. Thank you, David.
That's why I abstained.
Pamela looked the other direction when we said write the letter. I don't know what that meant. I'm going to read between the lines on that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Billy.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you too. We just have some reporting to do for this month. We have sent the list of questions to the NYCHA development team that were circulated to the committee. We have asked Councilmember Botcher to follow up to try to expedite getting answers. We continue to meet regularly with HHHS co-chairs and the board chair on the FEC project. We met with Eric Botcher, Paul and JD, Joe, and the City Council Committee on Land Use regarding our MSMX letter. At the meeting, Councilmember Botcher was interested in possibly identifying buildings to be expedited as landmarks like McBurney YMCA. So we have put together a list of those buildings that we would like for consideration. A few more came in today, and they will be added to the list with the help of Matt Sullivan, who's been doing a lot of this work. So we're going to try to make that happen before, any kind of demo or a walking tour. We had a briefing on the Gateway Project Hudson Tunnel Ventilation Tower. We're working with transportation on this, and Gateway will be coming to Clue to present this proposal. I'm not exactly sure when, but it's in progress. 28th, right next to the EMS station, right next to the proposed EMS station. 11th, 28th, and 11th. No, I think it's 28th. Yeah, thank you. Okay, 28th or 29th and 11th. Thank you. We are working on getting a follow-up meeting with DSNY, Eric Botcher, Eric Washington, whomever he would like to invite, and members of the committee to quickly advance the project to protect former colored school number 4. Our hope is that we can get that done and have them back here in April. We've been asking committee members to get more involved in committee business, from Mike and Viren, who worked on the MDA, to Josephine and Rodney, who recently attended a tenants association meeting at Fulton Houses, and we'll continue to do that in rotation. That's it. Betty.
What's the status of the planning for the public forum, public meeting for the Housing Authority project?
The town hall?
Yeah, the town hall.
Oh, I see Jet. Wait, stay right there.
Hi, Betty, everybody. Yeah, so the letter was sent out this week. So we will follow up and make ourselves a date and get ourselves a town hall.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Yes, the letter that you all voted on at full board. Inga, are you asking for me? Okay.
The question was, is that going to be on the website? Because other folks are trying to get their own town hall going and CB4 hasn't mentioned it. I will say this came out of HHHS. Oh, the letter is not on the website? But
Well, the letter doesn't have a date, so I don't think it really matters. But yeah, the letter went, today's Monday, the letter went out today. But yes, when we have a date, we will put it on the website.
sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll explain to anybody that wants to call my office and understand how the office works. Okay, the letters go up as they get sent out. So it got sent out today, and I will make sure it goes on the website as normally any other letters do. But the letter does not have a date. It does not have a calendar. It is a request for for them to attend a town hall. They could say no, so we don't know their answer yet. Yes. Any other questions for me on this issue? No. Okay.
Then we'll go to public.
Nailed that one, Jess. Thank you.
Jackie? Jackie. It's on.
Thank you. First and foremost, we love our homes and we love our communities, and we belong there. Huh? Oh, Jacqueline Lara, I'm from Fulton Houses. There was a tenant at the TA president this Wednesday that revealed that he was misled by the public relation team hired by Related, and he wanted rebuild. I mean, he wanted rebuild, and they told him to sign, and they took a picture of his signature. And when he read what he was signing, it was for demolition. So he was at the TA meeting letting them know that he wants his signature off of that. They're misleading a lot of people, and they're taking advantage of the vulnerable ones. This Saturday, I saw one of them talking to an old man, and he didn't even know what was going on, but he was looking for his ID and stuff. And I told her, stop, taking advantage of the vulnerable. But I told him in Spanish not to sign because I already know what they're doing out there. Oh no, I'm stuck on stupid right now. Sorry. Oh, wow. Thank you.
Well, let's be rational
Till 9
about
o'clock.
time in general.
They're doing apartments all fancy, so, and giving a tour of the apartments. They're making appointments for people to see the apartments that they're rebuilding and making it nice. But it just proves to us that they could fix our apartments. And the only thing we do need is just elevators and plumbing. They put these monitors in our building. I don't even know for what. I mean, that's such a waste of money and a waste of time. Because I don't think that many people have that many tickets. I mean, the only guys I always see complaining about it is the guys from 419 that are always showing their tickets and saying, the heat, hot water, and so on. I've never seen another resident come out here with tickets in their hands. Yeah, we're going to keep fighting this till the end. We don't want demolition. We could save these homes, and they're our homes. And I think I paid the mortgage twice for that apartment. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I could use the exercise more.
Can I go to the podium? Yeah. Thank you. Well, I'm Selena Esmeralda, and I'm here for the usual, no, my protest against demolition of the NYCHA buildings in Chelsea. And I wanted to make you aware that every day, some sort of public relations team hired by Related come to our FEC campus claiming to be from HUD and have been persistent in trying to get NYCHA tenants or any passerby to speak on camera and say that they approved the demolition plan. What I do not understand is the persistence of Related and Essence to create these testimonies. They are confidently moving forward on their so-called resident-led process. They constantly change their stories every time we prove their narrative wrong. First, they said it was resident-led, that our buildings are falling apart. Excuse me, I have to remove this from my mouth, sorry. Okay, they're confidently moving forward on their so-called resident-led process. They constantly change their stories every time we prove their narrative wrong. First, they say it was resident-led, that our buildings are falling apart and that it costs more to renovate. We have been able to rebuttal all of these false claims, so they come up with a different story. Now they are saying we need affordable housing. And most recently, they are bombarding our FEC grounds with the attempts to get anyone on camera approving demolition. And let's not forget their meanwhile plan that no longer is effective. So they upgraded to the master development agreement. And all of their indecisiveness on how to move forward tells me that we are having an impact. We have factual and strong arguments, and they insist on ignoring our voices, including our petition of 949 signatures. They insist this has been resident-led, but continue to ignore our petition and reinvent a new narrative each and every time. But it's okay because they could get 30 people on camera approving a demolition. That would just be 30 of the 550 people who chose rebuild on a survey. It does not change that we still have a petition against demolition of 949 signatures. This cannot be ignored. As a matter of fact, at a public hearing, Jonathan Gavay from NYCHA acknowledged our petition. He had no choice but to admit the existence of our petition. He also admitted that the tenants are the ones with the voice, and NYCHA will not move forward on their proposals if the tenants do not want to go along with it. Jonathan's responses was all virtual signaling. He didn't mean it, but had to pretend that the conversions in NYCHA are part of a democratic process. We must hold them accountable. They also admitted that the Section 18 demolition and disposition application has not been submitted. This means that demolition has not been approved. There is no done deal. They are moving forward against our will, deceptively and manipulatively. Please, let's not ignore the obvious, and please do not give up on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Salinas. There's a Zoom user online, Jesse, and then Alexis. And then Renee. Zoom user, I'm not sure who you are, but you may speak now.
Hello? Hello?
Hang on one sec, Alexis. Zoom
Okay.
user.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was me. Okay.
That's okay. You need to come off mute. Zoom. It just says Zoom user, so I'm sorry. I don't know who that is. Okay, Alexis, go ahead and we'll go to Zoom user next.
Hey, hi. I'll always say save Section 9, and I agree to what Celine and Jackie says. I'm just tired how many times we complain and we go to the official, the elected officials, and we go to the city council, and we have to scream sometimes so we can be heard, but we're ignored. You know, we have rights. We have a choice. As tenants, we have a choice. And I believe that Section 9 does protect us still. And I would like Essence Related to back off any pact preservation trust, any rat pat, none of that stuff. We survived for so many years under Section 9. We had renovations. We had a lot of things going on, but we must not forget that we still are under Section 9. But these people, the elected officials, are trying to destroy Section 9 to put Section 8 for privaters, and you are violating our human rights. We have rights. We have rights as tenants, and we are citizens. We have rights to speak up. We are ignored, and we should not be ignored. And Eric Botcher, stop harassing the vulnerable tenants in Chelsea. Okay? You and whoever it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. Now, Alexis.
Hello, hi, I'm Alexis. I'm with FEC No Demolition. I'm really upset at the fact that while walking my dog, I was stopped in my neighborhood about a petition. And when he was explaining himself why I should sign the petition was so that they can be a casino, a park, and a new school. Well, a dog park and a new school, and how it would help the community. And later on, he goes and says that that this would be great for us. And then I come to find out that it's to demolish a lot of what's going on in Chelsea. And I was being misinformed. I let him know that I'm against it and I didn't sign. Then within a week after that, coming out of my building, there was a lady named Joy, also that stopped me about a petition and asked me if I could sign it because we're going to get new washers and dryers and it would help. And so I asked her, what was this about? And she was like, oh, to demolish and also for a new casino and how it would help us. I told her no, and I told her as to why what's going on here will not help benefit us at all. Jobs is not only what we need money in our community. Then she goes on to say that she would like that I can contact Eric Botcher because he's the one that has been having her come around and to other people to let them know about signing this petition. I'm really upset at this because of the fact that, again, last week she stopped me and asked me, did I change my mind? I'm really pissed off. I'm sorry, I'm cursing, but I'm really upset about that because their goal is to clearly have us sign that petition. And I'm disgusted that there's still that Lady Joy that is there, which I know I also investigated that the other two people are going to my building are all working with Eric Botcher and to help to push this narrative. And they're not being truthful. I just want to let them know because also Renee, I also informed Renee because we had to figure out who are these people coming from, and we found out, and we let them know that we were like, I told Joy because she said that she wanted me to call Eric Botcher, and I told her no, that Eric Botcher should be coming to the tenant association meetings with Renee, with us there to hear what's going on with the residents, and she didn't want to hear that. So I just want to make that known at CB4 because they're really misleading tenants here, and I'm not going for it in my neighborhood at all. And I'm just really disgusted about how they're doing things in my community.
Thank you, Alexis. Renee, would you just make sure you say who you are?
My name is Renee Kit. I am the Resident Association President of the Elliott Chelsea Houses. I am also a resident of NYCHA. This is deeply disturbing what's going on. I have written to Lisa Bova-Hyatt, Jonathan Gouvet, Jamar Adams, Simon Kowitsky to let them all know that this needs to cease and desist. Everyone keeps saying this is a resident-driven process. It is not. This is manufacturing consent. Yes, they do. I have basically, I stood by, watched what happened, and then at the end of it, as she talked to a resident, then she calls Eric Botcher's phone, the 212 number. You can hear his voice plainly, and he is to leave a message. Then when I spoke to Joy, I said, "Are you a HUD official today?" And she laughed. What I said is, you can call Eric Botcher again and let me leave a message saying that I'm against the demolition. She didn't do that. She said in the past she had done that, but was told by her employer that she shouldn't do it. Right now, we are being assaulted on this campus daily. When I'm downstairs, I walk around to see where they're at. This shouldn't be happening. This is, to be quite honest, unethical and immoral. They're going to continue to do it, and we're going to continue to fight back. In a way, this is good and let us know we are effective, but it needs to stop. The lies need to stop. The cheating needs to stop. That I didn't do anything needs to stop. I let Jamar know, and he said, "Thank you for sharing," that he had been told that by other residents. But this will continue. We know they want us gone. They want demolition. They want us demolished. As always, we are against this demolition, and we will continue to fight. That's all I need to say. Also, get them off the campus.
Thanks, Renee. We have one more person, Quentin. Oh, sorry, of course, Quentin. Quentin, please let everybody know who you are and who you're here to represent.
Yes. Hey everyone, my name is Quentin, and I'm Quentin Halbronner, the liaison from Councilmember Botcher's office to the community board / everything within the CB4 area, and just wanted to, really reiterate about this group of petitioners. We're aware of them, to put it mildly. They have, as you guys all know, they have folks call our office pretty incessantly. They truly and honestly are not affiliated with us. I remember we started getting calls from these folks, and we were a little confused because they didn't sound, didn't sound like regular folks calling in support of the proposal, which does happen. It felt like, people were being forced to read a script and stop on the street. And once we learned that this is a sort of concerted efforts to lobby us, we asked them to stop. Occasionally when people call, I'll even say, do you mind if you pass me to the person who, came up to you? And folks who often have, and I've asked, hey, just checking in, what are you doing with all this information? Because it's really not from us. And frankly, we don't like it. And we've asked it to not continue. So I just want to say, no matter anything else, this is not a group that we condone, not a group we support. And frankly, a group that is not productive. And did just want to make that very clear and have that on the record here. And I'm sorry that everybody has to deal with them, and we would love them to cease as well.
So what can you do, Quentin, to get them to cease?
I mean, they don't work for us. They can, in the same way that if there's a group, if there were a group that were opposed to demolition, that were stopping random people on the street and having them call us, we couldn't make them stop either. It's freedom of speech. But we have made it clear that we do not appreciate what they're doing. And if anybody is, and initially, by the way, I wasn't even going to weigh in on this, but once, multiple folks said that the petitioners have either implied or maybe even outright stated that they were aligned with us, that they were coming from our office, that to me is a huge, if there were a way to make them stop, frankly, it would be that. That's my background is political campaigns before I went to the world of government. And if anybody who had been employed by me misled publicly where that money was coming from, I mean, that would not be good. I would be very unhappy about that, to put it mildly. But they don't work for us, so we can't make them stop. And people
Can you
call it
speak
off.
to, Quentin, can you speak to the people who are the community members who are here right now as to what steps they should take to, stop this from happening and protect themselves from harassment?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating in that, again, they have the folks there have the right to do what they're doing, no matter what it was about. They could be there for, petitioning about a project in Minnesota, and it would be annoying and not productive, but they'd be allowed to do it. I think, no, I don't want to weigh in on any like specific tactics or anything like that, but I would say that anyone who does approach people on the street and make a claim, especially one that says this is coming from, Councilmember Botcher's office or any other elected or anything other than the companies that we know are paying for it, and CADC, which I believe is the firm responsible for a lot of it, if not all of it. That would be, I think, just making it clear that that's inaccurate. And I mean, if I were on the street, someone did that and they misled me about where the money was coming from, I'd ask to talk to the supervisor, because that to me is it's frankly concerning, and it's not something we like to support.
Hi, this is Joe. So let's start out with, I was in the meeting on Friday with the council member and other elected officials and Chelsea residents. I attended as a housing professional. And number one, this issue came up. Eric was explicit, saying he had talked to people in advance, saying they were not working for him at all, but they are working, Quentin, for Related and Essence. So I'm going to ask that the council member who has said specifically, don't say I'm asking, you're lobbying on my behalf, because they're not. And he said he told Related and Essence not to do this. They did it anyway. And furthermore, that one person who claimed that they were representing Eric and the other elected officials was fired because he did that. So let's just make a request. I'll make it from the community world. We can do from HHHS, administrative letter to ask Related and Essence to have this group, CDAC, whatever it is, to leave the campus and stop harassing people, period. It's one thing if tenants, pro or con, go and try to get petitions. That's totally appropriate because they live there. That's their homes. They can be of different points of view. But for the development team to hire a group, and has everyone seen the videos? I have. They were sent. This is a professional thing, and they're laughing and joking, and they're clearly, and they do say, call your council member. It's like they're doing lobbying for something on a campus being paid for by a company that's getting a huge public benefit. So, Quentin, thank you for actually being here and talking, but I would ask that the council member address in writing to Related in Essence to stop this particular hired campaign, and the community board will take an administrative letter for the same thing.
Great. Now, obviously, I won't, I can't speak ahead of time for the counselor, but
He spoke on his own behalf.
I'd be surprised if, a second round were not taken well. And yeah, again, do want to reiterate, they're allowed to do this if they're being transparent about it. If they're not being transparent about it, that the rules may change where they're straight up just not allowed to do it. And either way, I don't think anybody here thinks it's making the process better. We want people to
not helping it.
Please call us, but not like this.
Okay, thank you, Quentin.
Of course. Oh, and one more detail. My laptop is being a bit funky, so I won't be listening on my laptop. I've been on my phone the whole meeting. My name will not be in here, but I am still available. So if anyone needs anything or has questions of me about anything, just let me know. It might take a minute for me to pull up Zoom on my conniption having laptop, but I'm here until the end of the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Quentin. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Are we almost ready to wrap it up, though, Dave? Okay.
Last meeting we were kind of rushed. We were going over, Viren's report on the MDA. I was reporting on the responses that NYCHA had recently given to our letter with questions. And I've been digesting a lot of that material since. We really didn't have a lot of time to talk about it. And I even reviewed the report, Carrie, that you made on the meeting with our leadership and the elected officials in January. And one thing kind of stood out to me. You said they are more interested in information that says they should not proceed with demolition, which they do not feel they have been provided with, but rather they have been provided with enough information that they should proceed with demolition. That seems to signal that they're open to hearing a case against demolition, and I think it really calls for a response, and that could be informed by some of the things that came out of the release of the MDA and those recent answers. The one thing I would say is that the buildings are not in poor enough condition to warrant demolition, which was the claim that formed the basis for the tenant survey and the entire replacement proposal. I've often said only structural flaws could account for that difference, and NYCHA's response to our question about that was that there were no structural issues that they knew of. They also refused to share any detailed building condition assessment and renovation cost estimate, as we had asked. It makes me wonder if they ever bothered to make it up. We also,
we sent a subsequent list of questions, which I had
right. This isn't about a list of questions to NYCHA. It's about a letter to the electeds enumerating reasons not to demolish. And I know some of them are obvious. We've been over some of this terrain before, but I think it's important to document them. And when you put them all together, I think it really is quite impressive. The price for the new construction has gone up to $1.9 billion. And NYCHA isn't sharing a cost for renovation, but they did share in response to our questions about what the most expensive renovation was to date, a link to all of their packed renovation costs, and the most expensive renovation to date is Edenwald in the Bronx, which is almost exactly the same number of units, 2,035 versus 2,056. It's actually an older complex. It would have been entirely lead paint contaminated, unlike 70% of Fulton Elliott Chelsea, and it's very similar construction. 40-building campus, a dozen of the buildings are 14 stories, and that is currently being renovated under PACT for $783 million. That's well under half the replacement estimate of $1.9 billion and $1 billion below it. That's another reason for not demolishing. Also, it's public funds, the low-income housing tax credits and the bonds that will make up that difference, and those could go elsewhere more usefully. You can't really say there's a tenant mandate for demolition, given the petition that went around. And even if there was one, it wouldn't warrant demolishing and replacing the buildings at a cost of $1 billion. NYCHA is not offering that as an option to its other residents of developments. It was always based, demolition, not on the condition of the buildings, but on a plan to flood the sites with new housing, which we've recently learned, the revenue from which wouldn't even stay on the campus as was presented originally. It's going to go into NYCHA's coffers, and that violates NYCHA's own build to preserve policy. Well, I'm simply enumerating these things that would go into the letter. Another thing,
I would just, if I could just make a suggestion for a second, and I appreciate you enumerating the items, and some of these you've communicated previously. I just want to, and I appreciate it, and I know there's more, and I don't mean to interrupt, but the board left off wanting to hold a town hall meeting. And the purpose of that town hall meeting was to communicate to the electeds and hold the electeds accountable. And so I'm wondering, as you're enumerating these items, if these are the type of items that should be, that may be appropriate for the town hall. Because that way they're being communicated directly to the elected officials, and this board has communicated that it wants to hear from the elected officials on the particular points. In fact, some of the points that you've made here, we know we have communicated and we haven't gotten a response. So I'm just wondering at this point, We haven't. Some, yeah. So I just am wondering at this point if what you're communicating would be most appropriate to strategize to communicate during the town hall.
I don't see a problem with communicating it in writing in a letter immediately or as soon as possible. We don't know when the town hall might take place. And as I said, I think it's important to make a public record of this. And let's, I'll make a motion at the end of this, but I just want to run down some of the other issues. Are
they new issues, David? Because we've definitely
no,
again,
they're not. But I would still like the chance to enumerate them. It won't take more than a few minutes. One is the loss of the 370 mature trees. They asked for reasons not to demolish. I'd like to answer that question directly. There's also the staggering cost in embodied carbon, which there's an entire mayor's office on climate that seeks to cut that in half. There's the issue of inflation, which is going to drive that $1.9 billion even higher. We've learned from the MDA that NYCHA's stake in this project is still only about $63 million, even though the project scope exploded. They have a security deposit of only $2,500,000. That means that if they demolish 2 of these buildings and they just decide to pull out because they don't like the way things are going financially or with inflation, the residents are going to be stuck. I mentioned before that according to NYCHA's own records, half of Manhattan NYCHA residents, heads of households, are 62 years of age. We're told that they will be right-sized. So about half of them are likely empty nesters, and 2/3 of the apartments at Fulton and Elliott Chelsea are 2 to 5 bedrooms. There could be a huge loss of bedrooms. That's another question we've asked and never gotten an answer to. I realize that's too NYCHA. I want this to be a drumbeat of reasons against demolition to the electeds that reporters or the Attorney General's office could look at. And I would
we've
like
given you the
for it
floor to enumerate your points. You said you wanted a few more minutes to enumerate your points. And you also said you wanted to make a motion at the end of that. So please, I think it would be beneficial, wrap up your points. And then I think you've already communicated that you wanted to make a motion.
Right. And I'd like, as part of the letter to state that we would like more information, but given the information we have as of this meeting, we're against demolition. The motion is to write a letter like that, enumerating all these reasons, stating that we want more answers, but that given where we stand today, we are against demolition. And I think that's important for the rest of the board to know, because I think there's confusion out there about where we stand. Yes. Well, there would be a letter for the full board to vote on as to whether they too are against demolition.
But you're asking for the Chelsea Land Use Committee to vote on a letter that we are against demolition. We are now taking a position for the first time, whether we're for or against demolition since the RFP. or the working group
Based on what
proposal.
we know to date, it would be a draft letter for adoption by the full board. I make that motion.
Yes.
Discussion on the motion. I don't think this kind of letter is necessary. I think it's redundant. I think it's overkill. I think it's absurd. We have made every single point, David, that you just raised has been said time and time and time and time and time and time again. The one thing we have not ever said is that we are in favor or opposed to demolition itself. The working group came out with a position that did not include demolition. This new revision does include demolition. I have not seen all of the budget numbers myself to know if demolition makes sense or not. You're citing some statistics. I have not seen the financials from Related. I have not seen the financials from NYCHA. Without that information myself, I am not in a position to say yes or no to demolition. What I'm more in favor of doing is finding the solutions. We need to move this project forward in some format. And there are ways in which we have discussed this as a group. There are ways that we have discussed this with the community. And I, as a board member, am not in a position to say I'm in favor of demolition. The NYCHA residents are not in favor of one position or the other. They are clearly divided. We, as a community board, have to be the responsible ones. We have to research the data. We have to look at the numbers and then make a decision. I do not have adequate information at my disposal as a board member to take a position as severe as that. And I'm not willing to write yet another letter enumerating exactly the same points over and over and over again. So I'm against this motion.
Any other discussion? Other discussion?
I got you, Paul. I understand where you're coming from. However, I think there's enough statistics out there for me certainly to be convinced that demolition should just be off the table, and further that this committee should take a stand instead of staying neutral on this matter. I would like to ask for a straw poll of these members right now. Not a vote, not a vote. So no straw poll.
No, there's a motion on the table.
Okay.
Why would we're going to vote? Why would we straw poll? So, excuse me, I just want to say, I feel like this is in response to me saying at exec that the committee was split, or that the committee was not necessarily all in favor or not in favor. And I just think that's a misrepresentation of what has happened on this committee. If we vote no right now, if we say we are against demolition, then we are against all demolition. Even Joe has said that there can be some demolition. And, you have heard from multiple people, sorry, even you, Joe, even you have heard from, many residents who are pro demolition. So it is kind of shocking to me that you would just you would vote to sort of put us in a position where we would take all of the options off the table. So that's my own personal opinion and what I believe to be the consensus of this committee. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Inga, you haven't spoken.
Yeah, I guess based on the information we have, total demolition of the NYCHA development I'm opposed to it. There hasn't been any discussion about partial. Based on the information we have, I would be opposed to it.
We are trying to get
So another
information
letter
from-
won't hurt.
Oh
That's
my
what I
gosh,
think.
Another letter
won't
So
hurt.
I will say that in my opinion too, that we are, with the amount of letters between the two committees, I think we are actually building momentum against the position that you want to take with the fuller board. They're getting tired of this. This is becoming ridiculous. We are starting to look ineffective and ridiculous. And we are really pushing hard to get all these answers, to get Eric Botcher to help us get these answers. And we're making some progress. But I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's just exhausting. The motion on the table is to write a letter to say that we are against demolition for the FEC NYCHA development. Okay, sorry, then please, what's the motion? Was that not? That's, glad it's on YouTube because that's what I heard.
The motion is to respond to the elected's January question, where they asked for more information from us why they should not proceed with demolition, to enumerate our reasons, including ones based on recent information like the release of the MDA and recent responses, and to conclude that by stating that given the information we want, and we do want more information, we cannot at this point support total demolition.
No one is asking us to support total demolition. You are creating something that does not exist right now. So I'm very confused.
Total demolition is bearing down on us. They're talking about destroying buildings in July.
I just want everyone to be very clear about what we're voting on, because what you said originally was that we need to take a position against demolition. And now you're talking about response to an elected's letter on January 16th. And I don't understand what the motion is anymore.
Well, obviously they hadn't heard all of our reasons as of January 6th, But then why did they ask us for reasons? And I would like to respond to that. It is the one thing out of that meeting where they weren't just giving us the finger with both hands, but asking for something. I think it calls for a response.
Want to take another?
But there's a motion on the table, so we have to vote. Motion. If you withdraw your second.
It's been my understanding that and I have been told that the board's position, given the task force, that the board's position has been that we are not in favor of demolition, but that has not been voted on. And I actually think voting on it would put us in a worse position. So I want to move to table this motion.
What are the rules on this?
Or do we need to vote? So would you second Marty's motion?
It's been voted. You table something that's been voted on. I mean, you're not. No.
Okay. Okay. So that supersedes the original motion? Okay, so we have a motion on the table to table the motion
Wait,
and
can
a
I,
second.
who made that motion?
Marty and Inga.
Marty made the motion and Inga is seconding tabling.
Yes.
Okay.
So are we ready to vote? All in favor
Wait, be specific. All in favor of the
of
tabling?
tabling the motion? I guess until next month. Hopefully we hear more. Hopefully we have a town hall. Okay. Anyone opposed to tabling the motion? Shanice? Anyone abstaining? I don't think so. And present not eligible, Mike? Yep. He's always with us. Oh, he might have thought we were done, but we know. To table passes for those online. Yeah. According to Marty, there's no timeline.
Stays on the agenda. Table
Yes. So we want to bring it up at the end as new business.
So we will talk about the same thing that we just.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Maybe we'll have more information at that point. Well, we've sent a list of questions. The town hall scheduled. I mean, Rodney.
New business. On behalf of the board engagement working group, I'd like to thank all the members who've completed the survey and sharing their information. Also invite the other members, if at any chance you could complete the survey, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Okay, I'll send it to you. Okay.
Thank you. Maria, you wanted to speak? Okay. Hi, Maria.
Can you hear me?
We can.
I had my hand up from earlier. I was gonna suggest what you guys ended up doing. I was gonna say, I think David has really valid questions. But we just sent out the letter today for the town hall. And we've asked some of these questions before. Let's just wait a month, see what happens, the date that's being proposed, right? And see if it happens before we move with another letter. We've already written, I think, a total like 6 to 8 letters on this issue. So let's just The momentum is building, the fire is under their butts, so let's just give it a couple more weeks and see where we are. So I'm glad you guys voted for me on it.
Thanks, Maria. Did you have something else? Okay, David, last thing. Wait, I'm keeping this.
Yeah, could we do an administrative letter to Landmarks, just asking them to add the buildings that I sent along earlier to the list that they would consider for a landmarking?
No, it's already,
To our
David,
council member then.
David,
Sorry.
the letter is coming. I'm the author of the MSMX letter. It's being done. We will be adding those items that you sent over today to the administrative letter. It's done.
Okay, very
I
good.
saw, I got sent the email that you had circulated to others. We're
And,
making sure it gets added.
Could,
Thank you.
could you perhaps include the PDF as an attachment? I'm not sure you got it, but it was shared with.
Yeah, anything that was previously requested for landmarking that can go into administrative letter will be sent in.
With this, okay, but these would be new buildings added, and there's an attachment if you would.
Sorry.
I'll do that.
Let me, hold on, hang on. That came at 6 o'clock or 5-something, 30 tonight. I've told David already that anything he wanted to add, we would get in front of Matt. So Paul, I will be forwarding that to you as soon as I get home tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that work. Absolutely. That's why we asked for them. Thank you. I think that that's it for us. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you. Thanks online.